High Septon speaks for the seven here on Earth. Strike at him, and you are striking at the gods themselves. Kevin Lannister to Cersei Lannister. A Dance with Dragons, Chapter 54, Cersei 1. By the start of the year 43 AC, King Maegor now had the realm under his control. While the Faith Militant would still pester his remaining reign, they wouldn't be the level of threat they were before. In King's Landing, Maegor had taken personal charge of the construction of the Red Keep, and very much wanted to shape it into his own vision. Much of the finished work was now undone or changed. New builders and workmen were brought in, and secret passages and tunnels crept through the depths of Aegon's High Hill. Arguably, Maegor's biggest change to the plans was to add a whole new structure. So as the red stone towers rose, the king commanded the building of a castle within the castle, a fortified keep surrounded by a dry moat that would soon become known as Maegor's Holdfast. Maegor then made Lord Lucas Harroway, the father of his second wife Queen Alice Harroway, his new hand of the king. But Lucas had no real influence over Maegor, and his title as Hand was just that in name. The reality is, it was not the Hand who had the king's ear. His grace might rule the Seven Kingdoms, men whispered, but he himself was ruled by three queens. His mother, Dowager Queen Visenya, the wife and sister of Aegon the Conqueror, Queen Alice Harroway, and the Pentoshi so-called witch, Queen Tyanna, the mistress of whisperers, and the king's raven for her black hair. She spoke with the rats and the spiders, it was said, and all the vermin at King's Landing came to her by night to tell tales of any fool rash enough to speak against the king. Filthy, unshaven creatures, armed with spears and axes, and clad in bits of dented plate, rusted mail, and cracked leather, under rough spun surcoats, bleached white and blazoned with seven-pointed stars of the faith, the High Sparrow's ragged army. Cersei Lannister's thoughts on the reborn poor fellows. A Dance with Dragons, Chapter 65, Cersei 2. While the threat of the Faith Militant had been reduced, thousands of poor fellows still haunted the roads and wild places of the Reach, the Trident, and the Vale. Though they would never again assemble in large numbers to face the king in open battle, the stars fought on in smaller ways, falling upon travellers and swarming over towns and villages or poorly defended castles, slaying the king's loyalists wherever they found them. So Horace Hill, who had escaped the Battle of the Great Fork, but defeat and flight had tarnished him, and his followers were few. The new leader of the poor fellows were men like ragged Silas, Septon Moon, and Dennis the Lame, hardly distinguishable from outlaws. One of their most vicious captains was a woman called Poxy Jeyne Poore, whose savage followers made the woods between King's Landing and Storm's End all but impassable to honest travellers. The more respectable order of the warriors' sons had chosen a new grand captain in the form of Ser Joffrey Doggett, the Red Dog of the Hills, who was determined to restore the order to its former glory. When Ser Joffrey set out from Lannisport to seek the blessing of the High Septon, 100 men rode with him. By the time he arrived in Oldtown, so many knights and squires and free riders had joined him that his number had swollen to at least 2,000. Elsewhere in the realm, other restless lords and men of faith were gathering men as well, and plotting ways to bring the dragon down. None of this had gone unnoticed. Ravens flew to every corner of the realm, summoning lords and landed knights of doubtful loyalty to King's Landing to bend the knee to Maegor, swear homage and deliver a son or daughter as a hostage for their obedience. The stars and swords were outlawed. Membership in either order was henceforth punishable by death. The High Septon was commanded to deliver himself to the Red Keep to stand trial for high treason. The High Septon responded from the Starry Sept, commanding the king to present himself in Oldtown to beg the forgiveness of the gods for his sins and cruelties. Many of the faithful echoed his defiance. Some pious lords did travel to King's Landing to pay homage and present hostages, but more did not, trusting to their numbers and the strength of their castles to keep them safe. While mostly unconcerned about the situation with the faith, King Maegor let the poison fester for almost half a year. So engrossed was he with the building of his Red Keep. It was his ever-vigilant mother who struck first. The Dowager Queen mounted Vhagar and brought fire and blood to the Riverlands, as she had once done to Dorne so many years ago during the Dragon's Wrath. In a single night, the seats of House Blaintree, House Terrick, House Deddings, House Leicester, and House Wayne were set aflame, and countless were left dead. This seemed to somewhat spur Maegor, as he himself took wing, flying Balerion to the Westerlands, where he burned the castles of the Brooms, the Farwells, the Lorches, and the other pious lords who had defied his summons to King's Landing to bend the knee. Lastly, he descended upon the seat of House Doggett, reducing it to naught but ash. The fires claimed the lives of Ser Joffrey Doggett, the leader of the warrior's sons, father, mother, and younger sister, along with all the sworn swords and serving men. As pillars of smoke rose all through the Westerlands and the Riverlands, Vhagar and Balerion turned south. During Aegon's conquest, another now dead Lord Hightower, counselled by another now dead High Septon, had opened the gates of Oldtown when faced with the prospect of dragons. But now it seemed as if the greatest and most populous city in Westeros must surely burn. As news of Maegor and Visenya's intentions spread, thousands fled Oldtown that very night, streaming from the city gates or taking ship for distant ports if they had the coin to do so. Those who could not leave, many thousands, took to the streets in drunken revelry. Records kept in the Citadel of Oldtown about the event have immortalised the words and intentions of the small folk. "This is a night for song and sin and drink," one man told another, "for come tomorrow, the virtuous and the vile burn together." Others gathered in the septs and the temples and ancient woods to pray they might be spared. In the starry sept, the High Septon railed and thundered, calling down the wrath of the gods upon House Targaryen. The archmacers of the Citadel met in a secret conclave. The men at the city watch filled sacks with sand and pails with water to fight the fires they knew were coming on daybreak. Along the city walls, crossbows, scorpions, spitfires, and spear throwers were hoisted onto the battlements in the vain hope of bringing down a dragon when they appeared. Led by Sir Morgan Hightower, a younger brother of the Lord of Oldtown, 200 warriors' sons spilled forth from their chapter house to defend his high holiness, surrounding the starry sept with a ring of steel, and, atop the high tower, the great beacon fire turned a baleful green, the sign of war. As Lord Martin Hightower called his banners, Oldtown waited for the dawn and the coming of the dragons. The Hightowers are an ancient family, very rich and very proud. Draw a moment to Daenerys Targaryen, A Clash of Kings Chapter 12, Daenerys 1. The dragons did come to Oldtown, Vhagar first, as the sun was rising, then Balerion just before midday, but they found the gates of the city open, the battlements unmanned, and the banners of House Targaryen, Tyrell, and Hightower flying side by side atop the city walls. The Dowager Queen Visenya was the first to learn the news. Sometime during the blackest hour of that long and dreadful night, the High Septon had suddenly died. A man of 53, as tireless as he was fearless, and to all appearances in robust good health. This High Septon had been renowned for his strength. More than once he had preached for a day and a night without taking sleep or nourishment. His sudden death shocked the city and dismayed his followers. The causes of his death are debated to this very day. Some say that his High Holiness took his own life in what was either an act of a craven afraid to face the wrath of King Maegor, or a noble sacrifice to spare the good folk of Oldtown from dragonfire. Others claim the Seven struck him down for the sin of pride, for heresy, treason and arrogance. Many and more remain certain he was murdered. But by whom? Sir Morgan Hightower did the deed at the command of his brother, some say, and Sir Morgan was seen entering and leaving the High Septon's privy chamber that night. Others point to Lady Patrice Hightower, Lord Martin's maiden aunt, and reputed witch, who did indeed seek an audience with his High Holiness at dusk, though he was alive when she departed. The Archmaesters of the Citadel are also suspected, though whether they made use of dark arts, an assassin, or a poisoned scroll is still a matter of debate. Messages went back and forth between the Citadel and Starry Sept all night, and there are still others who hold them all blameless, and lay the High Septon's death at the door of another rumoured sorceress and witch. the Dowager Queen Visenya Targaryen. The truth will likely never be known, but the swift reaction of Lord Martin Hightower when word reached him is beyond dispute. At once, he dispatched his own knights to disarm and arrest the warrior's sons, amongst them his own brother. The city gates were opened, and Targaryen banners raised along the walls. Even before Vhagar's wings were sighted, Lord Hightower's men were rousting the most devout from their beds and marching them to the Starry Sept to choose a new High Septon. It required a single ballot. Almost as one, the wise men and women of the faith turned to a Septon Pater, 90 years old, blind, stooped and feeble, but famously amiable. The new High Septon almost collapsed beneath the weight of the crystal crown when it was placed upon his head. But when Maegor Targaryen appeared before him in the Starry Sept, he was only too pleased to bless him as king and anoint his head with holy oils, even if he did forget the words of the blessing. Queen Visenya soon returned to Dragonstone with Vhagar, but King Maegor remained in Oldtown for almost half the year, holding court and presiding over trials. The captive warriors' sons, a choice was given. Those who renounced their allegiance to the Order would be permitted to travel to the Wall and live out their days as brothers of the Night's Watch. Those who refused could die as martyrs to their faith. 3/4 of the captives chose to take the black. The remainder died. 7 of their number, famous knights and the sons of lords, were given the honour of having King Maegor himself remove their heads with black fire. The rest of the condemned were beheaded by their own former brothers in arms. Of all their number, only one man received a full royal pardon, Ser Morgan Hightower, the brother of Lord Martin Hightower. Some see this as evidence of Ser Morgan's role in the death of the old High Septon. The new High Septon formally dissolved both the warrior sons and the poor fellows, commanding their remaining members to lay down their arms in the name of the gods. The 7 had no more need of warriors, proclaimed the High Holiness. Henceforth, the Iron Throne would protect and defend the faith. King Maegor granted the surviving members of the Faith Militant till the year's end to surrender their weapons and give up their rebellious ways. After that, those who remained defiant would find bounties on their head. A gold dragon for the head of any unrepentant warrior's son, a silver stag for the lies-ridden scalp of a poor fellow. During his time at Oldtown, the king would also reconcile with his first wife, Queen Cerise Hightower, the sister of his host, Lord Martin Hightower. Lord Hightower agreed to accept the king's other wives, to treat them with respect and honour and speak no further ill against them, whilst Maegor swore to restore Cerise to all rights, incomes and privileges due to her as his wedded wife and queen. A great feast was held at the Hightower to celebrate the reconciliation. The revels even included a bedding and second consummation, so all men would know this to be true and loving union.